Dybala! He is something else. Di Lorenzo, and still Di Lorenzo! The captain brings the house down. Partenopea champions once again, but the 33-year wait will now officially come to an end.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie A Sit Down, World Football Index's podcast for your Calcio to go. I'm Frank Crivello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How are we doing? An exciting Calcio weekend, to say the least, and it's continuing on in Champions League so far.
It was an exceptional Calcio weekend, and Champions League is off to maybe a bit of a lukewarm start as far as Serie A is concerned. But we will have a chance to have a conversation about all of those things. 37 goals in Serie A this weekend. This is not your father's Serie A, and teams like Cagliari, Udinese, and Empoli, they just didn't get the memo. Hellas Verona, Bologna tried. They just didn't score.
They tried.
So 37 goals scored by 15 of the teams. So that's a pretty impressive clip. Well done to our Serie A teams across the board for really giving us a lot of goal of the week candidates too.
Yeah.
So there's much to talk about with that. So
I don't know how you feel from this weekend, because you probably saw the derby at least, and probably the Lazio Juventus game live. I did not, because I was traveling all day Saturday. I didn't get home till like midnight on Saturday, so I missed all the games on Saturday, and so I already knew the score lines, and so I got to watch all those games kind of like calm and relax and just kind of analyze the games as they happen, as opposed to if I had watched the games, I probably would have been breaking shit all left and right, because it was not a pretty sight if you're a red and black fan.
You're a very smart man. You went, you chose the calmness and the serenity of nature with your sons, and you weren't bothered like the rest of us Milanisti. So,
that's right.
I actually turned it off after the penalty. So
Roma got a touchdown this weekend, so they're in the NFL spirit. It seems like, right? So good stuff. This week.
Why not? We got the chat populating. Anthony, as always, is in the house. Barrett's in the house. Amazing Vincent and Eduardo Hernandez. Hello. If you guys are watching us live, please drop a note in the chat. If you're watching us here on the YouTube channel for the first time, please drop a like. It only takes you 2 seconds to do. And also subscribe to our channel, because we do this just about every Tuesday night. We sometimes have to deviate because we do have families at home that we have to tend to. So, but we're glad you're all with us to break down match week 4. And also to talk a little European football this week, and we'll round it out with the world's most popular hashtag game, Who Won Calcio Twitter. We're still calling it Who Won Calcio Twitter.
Yeah, it's just Calcio related in general on any platform, but Twitter, why not? It's it's not going to be the X. It's not going to Who Won Calcio X. We're not doing that.
It's kind of, it doesn't sound the same.
No.
When you've done it one way for so long, it's really hard to really change what you call it. So
I'd make a dirty comment now, but I'm gonna hold back on that. But Eduardo, I see you in the chat. Eduardo, I see.
What's that?
I see Eduardo in the chat with the sup guys, high five to y'all. Pun intended.
This Milan is not good. LOL. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So I do have some things to say as far as Milan's performance in the derby. And then I also have some things to say about their performance today in the Champions League against Newcastle. So we'll get into that. Yeah. But Richard, let's get into this derby. Derby della Madonnina, one-sided. Dominated by Inter, 5-1 the final. It was Jan Sommer in goal. Inter's lineup, their traditional 3-5-2, what we've come to know. Yeah. Sommer in goal, Darmian, Acerbi, Bastoni, Dumfries, Barella, Calhanoglu, Mkhitaryan, and Di Marco, and then it was Thuram and Martinez up front. Milan with their 4-3-3, Maignan, Calabria on the right, Kjaer and Thiaw in the middle, Theo Hernandez on the left, Reinders, Krunic, and Loftus-Cheek with Leao, Giroud, and Pulisic. So not a whole lot of surprises. No. pretty much forced into the lineup with the Vic Tamore suspension and the Kalulu injury. And he and Chow partnering as center back pairing for the first, I believe this was the first time they had to partner together as a center back pairing since Chow joined. Not a good opponent to have to try this combination.
No, not at all.
And if you guys were listening to us last week, we told you what the warning signs were going to be for Milan against Inter, and they were clear and present from start to finish, and it didn't take long in the 4th minute. Henrik Mkhitaryan putting Inter up by a 0-0. And then in the Milan, to their credit, I thought we're starting to carve out some chances. Tao nearly made it 1-1. They started to have a little bit more of the ball. They started to grow into the game. And then at the 38th minute, just that wonder goal by Marcus Thuram. It's my goal of the week, which effectively ended this derby right there on 38 minutes. The Milans are trying, they're playing for the equalizer. I mean, this is exactly the way Inter wanted this to happen, Richard. I mean, and it suits how they really want to play. They can go out and get that early one, and now they can say, "You get the ball.
We'll counter.
You're gonna start bringing some numbers forward. You're gonna start trying to get some possession, and just when you think you're carving some things and getting comfortable, and you're crawling your way back into the game, boom, we're gonna take your soul from you." And I think that's really what happened on that second goal. But I mean, this script played perfectly for the way Inter wants to play.
Yeah, I mean, we want to call this a Derby della Madonnina, but you can call it a Distrazione di Milano because Milan got destroyed in this game. And yeah, I mean, we saw 4 counterattack goals in this game by Inter, but I mean, the way it started off, obviously Mkhitaryan, we told you Mkhitaryan was going to start the game. He was going to be a danger man with the late runners, and he got the first goal in the game there. Obviously, a wonderful play by Thuram to kind of set the whole thing up, and then Thuram coming back with a freaking wonder goal. A guy who Interisti have embraced from the beginning just because he brings such a dynamic aspect to the team that they haven't had really in a long time. And so he fits in so nicely with Lautaro Martinez, who is just a phenomenal striker himself. And when it went 2-0 there, I'm like, okay, well, there's game, set, match there. How bad is it going to get? We would see how bad it got, though.
But to Milan's credit, they kept battling. They came out in the second half. They were starting to establish some possession again. They were trying to carve out some things. Started to have a little bit more of the ball, and they would get their breakthrough in the 57th minute. Wonderful pass from Giroud playing through Rafa Leao to make it 2-1, and it was game on. And then again, in those moments shortly after that goal, Milan started growing with confidence. They didn't get anything really concrete, but you could see a purpose in their step trying to get back into the game. And once again, the soul of the red and black just completely gets ripped out. And it is Mkhitaryan again. I'm going to just say this, and I said this on Twitter. Henrik Mkhitaryan, okay, you're going to look at him and you're going to look at his body of work over the course of his career, and I think everybody's going to say a good player, a good career, but there is one thing that he is elite at, and he is one of the best in the world at, and that is finding the spaces that the forwards leave for him and advancing in there. He has done that his entire career. Absolutely. At Borussia Dortmund, Manchester United, Roma, Inter.
Shakhtar.
Yeah, Shakhtar. You better know when the forwards are making their runs in the counterattacking situations, in the crossing situations, you damn well better know where Mkhitaryan is, because he's going to find the space, and he's going to find the space without the ball. It's going to get to him, and if he gets to him, if it gets to him, good night. 3-1, and at that point, the match was effectively over.
Yeah, and this is what we said. There was an argument, prior to the game, who would start, Fratesi or Mkhitaryan, and we made this point last week on the podcast, saying Mkhitaryan is going to start because he does this kind of stuff. He's going to be so influential. Yes, Fratesi is eventually going to be the eventual start on this team because he is an excellent player as well. But Fratesi just came off, playing really well for the Azzurri in the international break, and Mkhitaryan is going to be a little bit more fresher, you would think, and he's a big game player as well. Not only does he is so effective on this kind of on as a runner, late runner, but he is a big game player. He's been a big game player throughout his entire career, and so you knew he was going to be effective in this game. You knew he was going to get a goal, at least one, and he got 2 in this game. And he kind of put the nail in the coffin right there. What 3 minutes after Leao's goal? So that rips the heart out right there for
about 12 minutes actually. I think Mkhitaryan was the 57th minute for Leao. 69th
You're right.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of the Juve game.
Yeah, so I mean, Milan are trying. Yeah, I mean, they were. I mean. So, but at that point, you're down 1-0. You're climbing up a hill. You're trying to get it back. You go down 2-0. Now you're trying to get back up that hill. You get one. That climb feels a little bit better because you're making some progress and you're climbing, and 3-1, and you're done. And you could just see it in Milan in their body language and how they performed for the rest of the game. It was loose. It was undisciplined. And they would get a penalty against Teo. Çalhanoğlu finishes that off, and then and then one more counterattack for good measure. Davide Fratesi gets in, scores his first Inter goal. 5-1 to Inter, and this is easily a story of we've seen this movie plenty of times. We've not seen it to the tune where Inter score 5.
Clinical.
But they were the better team.
Oh, yeah.
There is no sugarcoating this. There's no sugarcoating this at all in terms of the result. Inter deserved the win. Okay. Comments on the overall performance from both teams, Inter and then Milan.
First glance, you want to say that Milan is not ready for this limelight. They're not as good as we thought they are. Like, it's just based on the result, right? Just looking at the result. But I think you need to give 100% credit to people, Simone Inzaghi, Limone Ball, for the way they planned this game. As you mentioned at the start of this is perfection, exactly how Inter wanted to play this. They used the width, they used their speed, they used their pace. They were solid defensively. Really, Milan couldn't really create too many opportunities. This was the perfect game. If you want to have this game that you want to put on your pedestal as like one of your perfect games ever, this is one of Inzaghi's best games in terms of overall completion here. Just complete destruction of Milan, as they did in the Champions League semifinals, getting the early goals, 2 early goals in the game, or this game 1 early goal. Really just ripped the heart out of the Milan Rossoneri, and it was just pure dominance. They played the counterattack to perfection. This is what we all know Inter for being a fantastic counter team, and Inzaghi was able to implement exactly his game plan how he wanted. Milan, yeah, they had some positions with the ball, but Inter were clinical. This is what we've been saying for so long, that they have not been. They had many opportunities, throughout the years, even last year. They've not been clinical. And this year we've seen is super clinical from Inter. Lautaro's on from the beginning of the season. Thuram is playing well. I mean, the whole team is playing well at the moment. Bastoni is playing excellent both defensively and offensively. Dimarco is contributing offensively. And this team from back to front is fantastic. They're super, super talented on the starting 11 and from the bench. So that's Inter. Milan, they obviously could have done better. I thought Pulisic looked a little shell-shocked in this game. Leao, we talk about Leao's performance in this game versus Newcastle. I think he was far worse in the Derby game. Every pass he made just was 20 yards past the box, missing everybody. At times tried to do one-on-one way too often. Giroud was really played off the park because he really had, the defenders really just shut him down there. Cherby did a massive job on him. The midfield, I know what Pioli was doing, and we've given him credit for the inverted backs coming in the middle. But I'm talking about Teo Hernandez, Calabria coming in the middle. But that's fine and dandy if you want to gain possession. But when you lose possession, what do you do? And Milan did a really poor job of not only those guys coming back, but the midfield did not help Milan whatsoever in this game. Inter ran right in the middle. The winner usually of these kind of games is the midfield, and Inter's was by far the better midfield in this game. And they showed it. It was just complete destruction, and you have to give 100% credit to Inter. They fully deserve this. They are by far the best team in the league this year. I see what Juventus has done. I saw the 7 for Roma. Inter are by far the class of the league. And yeah, Milan should take no credit from Milan should walk away. Yeah, they lost 5-1. Terrible loss in the derby. But this is Inter. If you lost this to another team, it's more worrisome than I think Inter. There's no hanging your hat of losing to Inter in this fashion. Yeah, it was a terrible loss, but this is a fantastic Inter team.
I don't think this is a mentality issue, Anthony. I think that this is Inter are the worst possible matchup for Milan in Serie A of all the Serie A teams. They're the worst possible matchup because they're playing in such a way where the center backs are forced to just man mark the strikers, and that's where all the confusion. And now, Matteo was on, and we talked about it. Reinders and Loftus-Cheek and Pulisic look like they've been playing for Milan for 5 years. Going forward in attack, yes, but when you take a team with new pieces and when you take a team with a new system, as Milan did here, okay, there's two areas that a team like that is going to be most vulnerable. Okay, one on set pieces, which, interestingly enough, Milan weren't beaten on a set piece this time, and two, transition. Okay, and here's why it's in transition. You have players playing together that this is their fourth game together, in all reality, right? If you exclude all these preseason friendlies and the amount of time that they played and then training matches and all this other stuff. There isn't a sense, or there isn't a understanding of where everybody needs to be in certain situations. And the best evidence of that was Mkhitaryan's second goal.
Yeah.
It felt like 6 players chased Arnautovic into the box. And that's where the space was open for Mkhitaryan. There's no balance to Milan defensively. And I think that is the thing that has to get sorted out over time. Okay? They didn't defend with balance. A lot of guys out there chasing shadows. Okay? When I did my little scouting report in the summer about Tiani Reinders, I had my concerns about him defensively. Those concerns showed up big time in this game. Okay, great passing, great range, helps you keep the ball, does all of those things. It's not that he can't defend, it's that he's just not particularly good at it at this moment in his career. Okay. Krunic can't be everywhere, and that got exposed. There was no balance. And then when on the first goal for Mkhitaryan, there's nobody out to the top of the box to track across, or there's nobody stepping out to give. And then you can see what Mkhitaryan does. He just kind of, all right, I'm just going to drift a little bit and get in this spot. It's going to come to me and I can redirect it in.
Yeah.
And that's where it is. When Milan defend in transition, it's chaos. There isn't a shape to them. Yeah. Everybody's running, and it doesn't look like it's organized running.
And Inter drew them out of position too. Inter did so marvelous at drawing the players out of position and then leaving these big gaps that Mkhitaryan and company would just fill in, and boom, goal. Like, geez, I mean, it's perfectly played by Inter. And I agree with you on the mentality aspect. I will say this on the mentality front: Inter have won now 5 derbies in a row at least. I feel like the only mentality thing here is I feel like Inzaghi. He's obviously came from Lazio. He knows about these big derbies. He knows how to get his team up for these big games. He does. Yeah. He tells his players what it means to be in a derby, and the players should know, right? You're playing at the San Siro or Giuseppe Meazza if you're Interisti. Pioli, I don't know if I've seen it yet because 5 games in a row now they've lost a big derby. And granted, I'm not saying Pioli's not a bad manager. I'm not saying that, but it seems like in the game where it's emotion has to be right on the line, he almost subdues his team's emotions while Inzaghi feeds off of it, and it's shown in the last 5 games. It's never been more evident than the 2 Champions League semifinals and then tonight or this weekend. So full credit to Inzaghi to get his team mentally ready for these kind of games. And then to go also to Anthony's point, it was a shit show defensively, right? Malek Chow had his worst game of his career as a professional.
Yeah, he got abused.
He was abused. I mean, the whole defense was bad. Chiara was probably the most decent of the back 4, but that's not saying much, honestly. So, yeah, it was just wonderfully done by Inter. You got to tip your hat over to them. It was just a fantastic show by them.
Reno, I disagree with just about everything you've posted so far, just so you know. And I like you, but, this isn't something where you push the panic button, and here's why. There's still 34 games left.
Yep.
Okay. As bad as this was, there's still 34 games left. There is a return leg later in the season, or a reverse fixture later in the season where Milan's the home side. Now, do I think they'll win that game? Probably not. But I expect them to close the gap and be more competitive. Yeah. Okay. and get to the level that's expected of them in a derby. Inzaghi having 2 weeks to prepare for this derby probably was a huge edge for Inter as well.
You'd think it'd be fine for Pioli though too, and it clearly was not.
But man, when you get Inzaghi in one-off games, and when you're on an international break, and I'd love to go back and see what Inzaghi's record with games are with games. Coming off the break, I bet it's not perfect, but I bet it's up there.
He's underrated as a manager. He absolutely is underrated as a manager.
He is. He absolutely is. There's still 34 games before the fans' arrival. The derby is must be decided. I don't have a problem with that. And Milan fans should be disappointed and bitter that they lost the derby. That's, I understand the, I understand the sacredness of that. But I'm looking at the big picture, and I'm going to tell you this right now. While it is a derby, these are professionals, and they're looking at the big picture. They're looking at long-range planning. They're not, and the mentality for Milan has to be, get this past us, get over this quickly, because there's a lot of games in front of us. A Newcastle team coming to the San Siro are not going to feel sorry for Milan losing 5-1. Okay.
And to Ollie's point, to see what Milan was made of, right? The derby score, put that aside. How do they regroup after this? And I wanted to see Tuesday night against Newcastle, which we saw tonight, what they would produce. Because if they produce another shit show, maybe they're not as good as we thought they were. But I fully expected after that result that they were going to have a reaction. And we saw that reaction. And so that kind of confirms my suspicion that, yes, this team is still good. They just went into a win against a juggernaut, a buzzsaw that cannot be beat at the moment. And you just have to tip your hat off to them, Inter, and move on from there. And like I said, there's 34 games left to play. I'm sure Milan's going to be doing just fine. And watching that result against Newcastle, we'll see how the next handful of games go. But I was very I saw a positive reaction from Milan against Newcastle after what they did against Inter, or didn't do against Inter, I should say.
I'll say this though, when this fixture list came out for the season, and you looked at Roma before the break, Inter after the break, and this is where you've got to look at the big picture. I think you would have said win at least one of those, and it's, if you can win them both, great. If you can come out of there with 4 points, great. If you come, but the minimum is win one of those.
Yeah.
When you looked at how Roma was restructured and all the hype that was surrounding them, with Inter, with the continuity that they have, win one of those games, and it's not that bad. So, I mean, I think Milan are still on schedule. This is just optically ugly to lose. It's ugly to lose 5-1 in the derby. That's really what everybody is really concerning themselves with.
Absolutely.
But if you go back to what you say at the beginning and you see that and say, win one of those, win one of those, and if you lose the other one, it's not the end of the world. That's what it is. So, just trying to find a way to kind of put a positive spin on this for Milan moving forward. And they did go into their Champions. We'll talk about their Champions League performance today real quick. I don't know what else they could do. I thought that Milan played an outstanding game. I thought they put in a very good 90 minutes. I thought that they outplayed Newcastle. Outshot Newcastle 25-6. They ran into a very good performance from Pope.
Yeah, he was really good. He was really good.
And Pope basically saved them, because on a different day, Milan are probably top of the group on 3 points with a 3-goal difference, because this was a performance worthy of a 3-0 win, but they're walking away with a 0-0 draw. But this is what, when you look at what you saw on the pitch, this is what you want to see from a Milan coming off of a derby loss. You want to see the performance. You want to see the dominance. You want to see the chance creation. And a lot of that went on. They just didn't score. Yeah. Okay. So it's going to be one of those frustrating nights, but they can walk out of that feeling like, hey, we got this back a little bit. Now let's take this energy into the game against Verona this weekend. What do you think?
Yeah, they ran into a hot keeper, right? Sometimes when you run into these keepers who are just on it, nothing can get by them. You can't do anything about it, right? They had some quality opportunities that Nick Pope, just stifled away. I thought Leao was a lot better in this game, as I mentioned before, a couple minutes ago. The one slalom and run, which would have been a freaking #1 on ESPN's, top goals of the week, top plays of the week. He tried too much at the end. He went in for that back flick. He could have just gone for a regular shot and would have scored, but whatever.
He has done it where he's changed his speed and finished on his left. I've seen him do it so many times, and I don't know why he didn't do it there.
Yeah, I know.
It was the perfect chance to do that.
And when the announcer said that maybe he was just trying to go for the ultimate highlight reel because he already was at a highlight at that point. But either way, he should have done a lot better there. They didn't score. They didn't finish their chances. They were not clinical as Inter were in the derby previously. If this was the other hat with tomorrow with Inter, I imagine Inter will finish those chances as opposed to the way Milan did tonight. But Milan looked dominant against Newcastle. All the Prem faces kept saying how Milan is not really that good. It's really Brentford who are more of a challenge for Newcastle than Milan are. And where did Newcastle didn't even show up in this game? Tonali, I think he was also spared one because on that slalom and run that Leao should have scored on, didn't. Tonali kind of gave up on him right at the end, and if Leao had scored, they probably would have gone after him, his fans. But luckily he got spared in that game. But overall, good game for Milan. Much well done bounce back for them, and I expected that performance.
Ideally, you want to win, you want to get all the points, but when you look at the group as a whole, PSG winning 2-0 over Borussia Dortmund, and that game PSG just took target practice on Dortmund.
And I still wasn't impressed with them.
No, it wasn't impressive. So this group is still wide open. And Magnan will have to figure out what the heck happened with him. I know that's something that's coming up in the chat, and the injury proneness is starting to get more and more concerning with him.
Yeah, Sportiello made a fantastic save to save that game because the one attempt they had on goal was a great save by Sportiello. So.
But this is the thing, and this is the thing that came out of this game when you take a look at it. I mean, Chukwueze looked good, okay? Yeah. Musa, when he came on, he looked good, okay? And then Sportiello having to come on, okay? And this is why the Maldini thing, Reno, is not, is something we've gotten past and gotten on with our lives. Moncada and is it Furlani? Yep. They assembled depth and they did it smartly and they didn't overspend for anybody. And you're looking at the pieces that are coming into play. Musa looked good. Chukwueze looked good. Sportiello is going to be far more serviceable than Tatrasanu ever was. Yeah. It leaves you with a little bit of confidence here. So Pobega was solid. I agree. And then Florenzi was, the one that he put on Leo's head, that's another one Leo should have finished.
Yeah.
So it's okay. It sucks that they got trounced in the derby, but they rebounded nicely against a very good Newcastle team that's going to compete for top 4 again in the Premier League and show that they can outplay them. So you get out of this feeling, but validate this by beating Verona on Saturday. And I don't need to see 4-0 on Saturday. I just need to see 3 points.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like someone mentioned in the chat, might have been Ollie. The next 5 games are very winnable for Milan, and if they want to prove that they are legit, they gotta have to win those games and win them comfortably, not put a performance that they did against the derbies. So, but Milan weren't the only team who struggled in a big game this weekend, were they?
Mm-hmm. How about the other big game that took place on Saturday?
Yeah, Juventus against Lazio. Lots of people obviously ranking Juventus very high this year. I ranking Lazio very high this year, and so it was interesting to see how this game would go. We saw Lazio do almost a perfect game. Well, it was a perfect game against Napoli. Got a win already, early win in the season. Going to Juventus in a game where I fully expected that Lazio would see a majority of the ball. Juve would sit back and kind of, just try to play counterattack and the typical Juventus formation in this game, but we didn't really see that. Looking at the lineups in this one, for the home team, Szczesny in goal with a back 3 of Danilo, Bremer, and Gatti. Midfield of Kostic, Rabiot, Locatelli, Miretti, and McKennie, with Vlahovic and Chiesa back together again, and it seems to be suiting number 9 very well so far. Looking at the Lazio side, they came out with a 4-3-3. Provedel, obviously, in goal. Husai, Romagnoli, Casale, the fantastic center back pairing there for Lazio with Marusic on the right. Kamada, Cataldi, and Luis Alberto in the middle, with Zaccagni and Felipe Anderson flanking Immobile. This game, I almost want to ask you, Frank, is Allegri on vacation? They got a new manager here? Because this is the most stylistic Juventus I've seen offensively since the Pirlo days, it seems like, or even further back there. What we saw in this game is nothing like I expected to see. What we saw is an aggressive and attacking, a slick playing Juventus to start off the game. That first 30 minutes, they were just putting it to Lazio. Lazio didn't know what hit them. We saw a wonderful goal of the week candidate by Vlahovic in the 10th minute, 10th minute. Wonderful cross, wonderful one-time shot to get it past Provedel. Unexpected for me. I did not expect Juventus to do this. I've seen a couple games this season where they did come out this way, but in a big game like this, did not expect this from Juventus. I thought Allegri would go to his normal tactics. We did not see that. They continued to press on, which again is very anti-Allegri. And Chiesa, some wonderful work in the box that Rabiot nearly got to put a ball away. I think McKennie kind of started this whole thing, but Chiesa pounced on the loose ball. Another goal of the week candidate there, made it 2-0 within 30 minutes. And they kind of let up in that second, the rest of the first half, and Lazio kind of got into it, but 2-0 there at the break. And Frank, I got to tell you, if this is the Juventus we're going to see this season, I'm damn impressed. I did not expect this from Juventus. This is not Allegri ball, and they look, in my eyes, they looked entertaining. They looked freewheeling, moving the ball around, confusing the Lazio defense, and their two main guys up top. They're loving life together. It feels like the Fiorentina days, and they both got in the score sheet early. What are your thoughts on the first half there?
Direct and ruthless were the two adjectives I wrote about Juve's attack.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, it reminded me of Lippi's teams from the mid-'90s. When I watched, Lippi played a different system, obviously. He played a 4-3-3. But things that I noticed. Okay, first of all, the direct diagonal balls into Vlahovic are effective. But they're effective because there's space for Vlahovic to play. Now, noticeably, Lazio didn't defend with the compactness. We talked about this last Wednesday.
Yeah.
Lazio didn't defend with the compactness that they did against Napoli.
Nope.
Okay, where Osimhen was choked out, for lack of a better description. And limited to some off-target shots and just kind of taking some really, low percentage chances. Here, there's space for Vlahovic. He finds the area in between the two center backs on the first one and finishes nicely. It was a clever ball by Locatelli. The second goal is just excellent control and then just creating the space for his shot.
Yeah.
This is what we're capable of, what Juventus is capable of being. I mean, use the attacking talent that you have at your disposal and optimize it. Okay, and that's what they did.
I think the 3-5-2 suits this team so well. It's nice to see Allegri adapting to this. But what we saw at the end of the first half is kind of what I expected the whole game to be like, where after they got up 2-0, they kind of just went back into like defensive mode there, which is typical Allegri when he goes up 2-0. And Lazio started to get into the game. Coming out of the break in the second half, we saw more of Lazio pressing, and then what we saw is a fantastic goal by Luis Alberto. Made it 2-1 at that point. You're thinking, oh my gosh, here we go. Lazio are back into this. Again, Luis Alberto seems to be putting the team on his back this season so far. Or it's early still, but I'm loving what I'm seeing from Luis Alberto. They needed someone to step up with Milinkovic-Savic disappearing to Saudi Arabia. And Luis Alberto is more than capable of doing that, and he's shown that so far this season. It's 2-1 at that point. It didn't last very long, though. 3 minutes later, a wonderful, McKennie, say what you want to say about him. He has moments where he does something brilliant, whether it's with the ball at his head inside the box, but he makes these runs at times, he makes these passes at times, and in this play in the 69th minute, wonderful cross pass play onto the chest of Vlahovic, and Vlahovic with a world-class first touch to kind of stop it, correct himself, get past the defender there, 1 or 2 defender, and then slots a home pass. Provedel, another goal of the week candidate there. Fantastic by Vlahovic, looking like vintage Fiorentina Vlahovic there. 3-1 at that point in his game set match. Juve kind of saw things out after that. There were some chances that Lazio had later on, but mostly it was Juve cruising to the victory. And what I liked after the third goal compared to the second goal, after the second goal, Allegri and company kind of went back into their normal Allegri defensive shell and just tried to block everything. What they did in the third goal, after the third goal, they just kept attacking. You saw throughout the game, it came in waves and waves and waves. Moise Kean had an opportunity. A couple other guys had some opportunities late in the game as well. So that's what, if this is how Allegri 2.0 really is going to be like, or Allegri 3.0, whatever, if it's another version of him, this is going to be a successful Juventus against the big teams down the stretch, because what I saw in this game was as you said, aggressive team, a ruthless team. They were clinical when they had to be. Their stars were put in the perfect positions, and they were clinical. They showed you who they were, the talent that they had, right? Chiesa and Vlahovic looked like the players that Juventus wanted them when they first signed them. And I think that midfield, the midfield 5 that they had, Rabiot had a really good game. Locatelli was decent in this game. Meretti, I thought, played really well. Kostic and McKennie were good as well. And, Danilo and Gatti both got up. Bremer, I'm sure you're going to talk about him. Bremer, I thought, was really good in this game. But they really took it to Lazio, and I think Sarri and company did not expect any of this, and we're just completely shell-shocked for the opening moments of this game.
Yeah. Lazio tried to play Juve, and here's what Allegri saw. Allegri said, well, if they come out and try to play us, we're going to transition, and we got to get through their lines, especially through their midfield and at their defenders quickly. Yeah. Okay, before they have the chance to defend and regroup. Because when I think the concern is we talked about the Napoli game. Okay, more compact. Take Osimhen out of the game. Take your chances with Kvaratskhelia. And we talked about this last Wednesday. Like, Sarri should go and set his team up the same way and let Juve come at them.
Exactly.
And then they just do the counterattacking. But they did it the other way. And we also talked about how that might be affected because we saw how Bologna were successful. Correct. Juve made some nice adjustments. Allegri made some nice adjustments, and his team, defended with more balance and defended with more compactness. There weren't the gaps, in between Bremer and the backs. But then the other thing was, why was Bologna such a success against Juventus in their game and could have came away with the win? Xerxes had the chance to get the ball and play people in directly from his forward position. Yeah. Immobile had no chance. Bremer kicked the shit out of him for 90 minutes. I mean, that's basically what happened here. And Bremer even got a yellow card in this game. But Bremer was – and for all of what Juve did going forward, okay, the unwritten comment here is Bremer. Bremer was masterful against Immobile on Saturday. He was. Just masterful. And I was even surprised that Immobile got a shot on target in this game. He had one. He had another shot blocked. That's it. That's all it is. And when you are Lazio, you depend on Immobile to be a part of your attack. And when Lazio got the ball in possession, you had Bremer man marking, and you could literally watch it. There wasn't any zone. There wasn't any support, balance, that kind of thing. It was Bremer just following Immobile where he went. And he made sure that he was like within touching distance of him at all times. That forced Lazio to have to go around Juve, okay? And the chances weren't very good, okay? So how does Lazio score? They press Juventus. And that's where I think you can get Juve still through in their midfield players. If you can press them before they get going, you're going to get your chances because you're going to catch Juve stretched, okay? And that's how Lazio got their goal. There were two other occasions where they were successful and nearly got something out of it. Okay. So that's something that I think has to be of concern if you're a Juventus supporter. That those midfield players can still get pressed into mistakes and can put the team into situations where they're stretched. And I can just see, Milan could come out and press Locatelli, press Rabiot when they've got the ball trying to enter the middle third into mistakes. Pioli wants to get these midfielders playing higher. You press them. Leo now has room and go from there. So how many midfields are better than Juve's for now? I'd say Inter's is better.
Inter.
Napoli. I'd argue that Napoli's is better.
Yes.
He counts 3 teams.
Milan. He's probably looking at Milan, I would guess.
I don't know. I got to see them play. I've got to see them play each other. In theory, I could see where he could think that. Yeah. Okay, you could make the case for Roma.
Roma has a chance. Fiorentina and Atalanta have chances.
Mm-hmm. Though Fiorentina not so much now that Amrabat's gone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, but no, I get it, Ollie. That's a great point. Yeah. So that's one thing that I think Juve will need to fix.
But I think Bonetti brought this up last week too. Is like this midfield doesn't scare you. They go to Europe and they're going to be. Look, Italia doesn't scare you. As Rabiot, he seems to play well in the big games. We saw he's done it for France. He's done it for Juventus. He's done it PSG. But the rest of his midfield really hasn't been tested, and so none of them scream, "I'm scared of you and I gotta avoid you." And so until they get better and start proving people wrong, they're just going to be midfield, and maybe they'll do well in Serie A because there's only a handful of teams that are better than maybe midfield as a whole. But you go to the European games when they eventually get there, and they're gonna have to prove a lot. And so I guess they got a year to work on that. But I think overall it's a good game. And going back to your defensive point there about Bremer, I compare the Inter back 3 to Juventus back 3 in this sense. Bremer was fantastic in this game. He's got to be fantastic for that back 3 to work. Same thing with Acerbi and Inter, right? Acerbi does well, and the rest of it helps the back line so much. And I think 2 players, as a result of those 2 guys that feast off of that, are 2 players I mentioned from a long time ago when they first came in the league, both Gatti and Bastoni, saying, watch these guys. They're good in the back, and they can provide the offensive side. They're good defensively. Watch out for them. It both took a little bit to get acclimated to their teams, but what you're seeing is both of them starting to flourish because of guys like Bremer and guys like Acerbi. It gets them comfortable, allows them to play a little bit more out of their skin, let them be a little more loose, and you see them flourish as a result too. So yeah, it's just good things from the Juventus back 3, and good to see Bremer seems a bounce back year after last year, which was a little bit of a nightmare for him after coming over to Juventus.
Yeah, totally agree. What were your impressions of Lazio here against Atletico Madrid? Certainly caused a lot of certainly created a lot of chances. It's always an Atletico Madrid that's going to be dangerous going the other way. They got a goal from Barrios that deflected off a defender.
Yeah.
I had concerns with the partnership of Patrick and Romagnoli, but Patrick actually played all right.
Yeah.
I thought it was a chance for Alvaro Morata to eat with Patrick back there, but they contained him pretty well. So that's something that we probably should take a look at, because Patrick played a little bit better. Than I probably was going to give him credit for. And I thought, they got good play from Luis Alberto. He tried to dictate things. I mean, I think that the way that Atletico Madrid set up, I think they were going to let Luis Alberto have it in certain areas, or as long as he was going to be in dangerous positions. But lo and behold, they can't, Lazio can't finish anything, but then they rely on the ever prolific Ivan Provedel in the 95th minute.
The next Azzurri striker here, right?
Yeah.
This is a game similar to Milan where they looked terrible on the weekend, and I expected a better performance from Lazio because I do think this is a good Lazio team, and so I fully expect them to bounce back. It's going to be difficult against Cholito's defense that he always has for the last 12 years. Anytime you play against his teams, their defense are just one of the most difficult in the world to break down, especially when they get a lead. And I think they fully deserve to draw in this game. They, obviously got a bad balance with the Barrios deflection that ended him going into the goal. Provedel had to make some big saves, but on the counter to that, I thought they created some chances offensively. Oblak had to make some big saves. He's a big time keeper, and he looked at. I mean, Immobile had some sitters that he's gonna be having nightmares about. He was better in this game than he was against Juventus, but I thought, the midfield, Kamada was involved a lot. Luis Alberto was going to have a lot of the ball, but Kamada made the most of his opportunities. I thought Vecino was really good early on. Modisic was involved, a little bit coming down to help out with the offensive side. Provedel was big when he had to be. I like to see more of Felipe Anderson and Zaccagni, but obviously Aleti were focusing on them to kind of shut them out and hope their defense was going to cancel out Immobile, which they did for most parts of the game, but they still had their opportunities and they never quit. And then what you saw is they gave too much time at the end, and Luis Alberto, this perfect ball into the box, and Provedel looking like the classic number 9 there with a beautiful run and getting the header there, and his reaction was magnificent. I think they fully deserved that draw. Good performance by Atleti, but I thought Lazio tried the entire game. They gave him a hell of a game.
And there's no shame. I mean, if you can get points off of the favorite to win that group, that sets you up pretty well. It comes down to how they can do against Feyenoord that's going to determine whether or not they're going to be able to go through. Yeah. Provedel heads better than Leao, just saying.
Yeah. Most players in the league he does. He's pretty good.
He scored more than he outscored Ciro Immobile over the last 2 games.
Ouch.
Provedel greater than Immobile.
There you go. Yeah.
We'll start printing those T-shirts.
That's right. No, but go back to your point about Patrick. I thought Patrick, I was worried about that defensive pairing with he and Romagnoli. But what we saw is that Patrick, he stepped up. He had some good opportunities. He had some good ball movement. Especially he got a little risque there in defensive end where he tried to dribble the ball all the way out, and he was successful at times. So good performance by him overall. But I think this Lazio performance is much better than what we saw on the weekend. And when Lazzari, I like to see more of him. I didn't think he was anything when he came off the bench, but Isaacson, he was involved. Guendouzi was involved. I thought Cataldi had good performance as well when he came off. Obviously, seeing a cameo by Pedro, I expected things would pick up when Pedro came in there because he obviously knows Atleti very well from his time in La Liga. So good performance by Lazio, and I think it's an unexpected point that many, including Atleti, did not expect. I know Griezmann and company are shocked at the result, but again, fully deserved by Lazio. And if they can get a result now in their next matchup, that's going to be crucial for them and their chances of progressing. I still think all 4 Italian teams are going to progress, but this is going to be a true test to see what Lazio is made of. And I'm hoping Sarri and company continue to take this seriously, because if they do, they have a really good chance of getting out of this group.
Yep. It just, like I said, I think it comes down to the 2 games with Feyenoord. Yep. If they get the better of the points of those, then they're going to go through.
Yep.
All right. The rest of match week 4, certainly a lot of goals. So strap in. We're going to go right through them. Genoa and Napoli. Probably one of the if 5-1 Inter over Milan wasn't the surprise of the weekend, this is up there. Genoa 2-2. With Napoli, and Genoa was winning 2-0. Mattia Bani scoring in the 40th minute from Coni de Vinter, and then Matteo Retegui in the 56th minute, making it 2-0. Were we in for a shock? And then Cajuste showed up for the first time probably since the last time, and he actually played really well. He gets an assist for Giacomo Raspadori to make it 2-1. And then in the 84th minute, it is Matteo Politano with a goal of the week candidate to spare the blushes somewhat for the Partenope in a 2-2 draw. Cagliari and Udinese didn't get the memo about lots of goals being scored this week. I thought this could be Cagliari's first win this season. They actually had 1.59 expected goals to Udinese, 0.75 as the game went on. So they
looked a better team.
Yeah, they were the better team. Should have got the 3 points, didn't get it done. Sassuolo gets out to a 2-0 lead in the first 24 minutes, and it is a brace from Andrea Pinamonti, one from Matias Vigna, the other from Jeremy Toljan. But just before halftime, a lifeline for Frosinone, and Walid Khedira getting his first goal for Frosinone at Serie A level. It has to be set on a penalty. And that makes it 2-1. And then all of a sudden, Frosinone just go off in the second half, and in particular, one Luca Mazzitelli with a goal of the week candidate to square the match at 2-2, and then 6 minutes later in the 76th puts them ahead, making it 3-2. Sassuolo's pressing desperately to try to rescue a point out of it, but then they've got everybody committed forward, and then Khedira gets through and unselfishly plays Polirola for a fourth. Eusebio Di Francesco, is he really having a renaissance? Is he really having a redemption at Frosinone? Time will tell if this can be sustained. Monza and Lecce, we told you that this might be the most entertaining game that doesn't involve the marquee teams. It was entertaining for reasons beyond just the game itself. Kristovic scoring again for Lecce, this time on a penalty 3 minutes in. And boy, I'll tell you what, Andrea Colpani looks to be the next big time attacking midfielder in the Italian setup.
Yes.
And what a wonderful 1-2 with Lorenzo Colombo. This is a goal of the week candidate for us. 1-1. Federico Baschirotto was sent off in the 55th minute. Luca Caldiroda, a second yellow. Monza outshot Lecce 25-4. So Lecce might have been a little bit lucky to get this 1-1 draw. Expected goals 2.18 to 0.89 if you're into that kind of thing in favor of Monza, but the game ends 1-1. Fiorentina and Atalanta 3-2. Tun Koopmeiners in the 20th minute, giving the lead for Ladea. 15 minutes later, an old friend of Atalanta's Giacomo Bonaventura in the 35th minute, goal of the week candidate with his control and finish. And in the 45th minute, just before halftime, there's Lucas Martinez Quarta. I told you, play him. I mean, I don't know what this Luca Ranieri bullshit was with them against Inter a couple of weeks ago, but here we are. Maybe I should apply for the Fiorentina manager job if they ever sack Italiano.
There you go. There you go.
53rd minute. I love Florence. I love that city. Have you ever been?
No, not yet, but I plan to be there.
Great town. Great city. Ademola Lookman leveled the scoring in the 53rd minute, making it 2-2. It would be Kouame getting the winner in the 76th minute for Fiorentina. 26 shots between the two teams. Fiorentina actually had 8 shots on target. So Carnesecchi, good to see him with a good team.
Yeah.
Helping keep Atalanta in it, but not enough. Are you ready for some football? Roma with a touchdown. Beating Empoli 7-0. It was Paulo Dybala on a penalty. Renato Sanchez scoring then in the 8th minute. 2-0 after 8 minutes. Alberto Grassi thought, you know what? We're not going to score on your net, Roma, so I'm just going to score on my own and add to the fun. 3-0 to Roma there. Paulo Dybala in the 55th minute. Brian Cristante in the 79th minute. Romelu Lukaku in the 82nd minute. Gianluca Mancini in the 86th. And the laughable thing is the expected goals for Roma was 2.4. So that's like saying there's like 4 or 5 of those goals they shouldn't have scored.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can say that. So I watched this game and I watched highlights of this game and I'm like, I don't know how they didn't score 10.
I know. I know.
But that's why I think expected goals can be foolish sometimes.
Yep.
Salernitana hurt my feelings because I had a lot of not a lot, but I had some financial interest in them. I thought they could win at home against Torino even without Bouladia. I thought that they could get it done, but Torino, we said it before, it's Ivan Juric's most talented team that he's probably had at any of his Serie A stops, and he gets a 3-0 win at Salernitana. It was Alessandro Buongiorno in the 15th minute, and then a Nemanja Radonjic double. Yeah. Radonjic was just the man in this game.
He was.
And that is a 3-0 win for Torino on the road. And then Hellas Verona rounded it up by not getting the memo about all the goals. 0-0 the score there, although Bologna did everything they could, especially Xerxes and Doi and Ferguson. Just not enough to get it done. A debut for Remo Freuler, though, for Bologna, which a position of need when Dominguez left. So,
yes.
Where do you want to start with these games?
Well, let's start. We'll go back all the way to Saturday. The third big game of the day. You would have thinking, right? But Genoa hosting Napoli, and first of all, the jerseys the kits by Genoa are fantastic. I love the mustard color.
I like that color.
I normally don't like it, but I look good on them. Retegui, he seems like a real deal, man. He had a lot of chances in that first half. He creates his own opportunities. He's opportunistic. He's not just a flash in the pan, I think. And so, I love what I saw from him. And Genoa, really, I think what we saw is Gilardino paying attention to what happened in other games. And they watch what other teams were doing against Napoli, and we saw a lot of double teaming against Kvaratskhelia, which made it a little bit more difficult for him, and it kind of stifled Napoli. I mean, obviously the whole defensive work that they did was stifling Napoli early on, but what we saw eventually is after down 2-0, Napoli really turned it on, and then you saw the midfield players really tightening the screws in that one. And Raspadori with a wonderful goal. His goal was wonderfully taken there. And then Politano, like you mentioned, a great goal there. But Genoa, man, I think they're gonna be a lot better than most people think they are this year. I think Gilardino has the tactics in him. He has some players on his team. Some, Goodmanson is another player that we like. He played well in this game too. And so Genoa are going to surprise a lot of people this year, and obviously surprised Napoli. I think, again, this is why I didn't pick Napoli to win the Scudettos, because I don't think Rudy Garcia in these types of game, even the big games, always gets it right. And it showed in this game how we're not ready for Genoa to come out like they did. And full credit to Genoa for that. But, Napoli are the champions. They did fight back and made it 2-2, but it was an entertaining game, to say the least. The weekend, like you said, Cagliari should have won that game. They had lots of opportunities. Lavumba is a wonderful player. He had lots of opportunities in the game. They just could not score a goal for the life of them. They got lucky as well. One play, I forget, Lavumba, I think it was, had a fantastic shot off the post. Goes right into the arms of Silvestri, right? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to bounce off him going to goal. So, they got kind of unlucky there. The EDF derby at Frosinone, I thought I don't know if Frosinone can hold it up for the whole entire season, but no,
it won't sustain.
What do we say this about all the other teams, right? Lecce and other teams, get the points while you can. While every other team is trying to get to that good spot, take advantage of it. And Frosinone certainly are so far this season. 4 goals. Mattatelli, wonderful performance by him. Monza, Lecce kind of lived up to the billing. 2 good teams there, and Monza, our team, going to be in the top 10 again. I do believe. I'm glad I was wrong with the Fiorentina-Atalanta game. I thought Atalanta were going to be able to continue on in their fine form, but Fiorentina stepped up. They've been struggling.
I told you Fiorentina would bounce back.
You did, and the performance was excellent. They went. It was a puncher's game, and they had the last punch, and they knocked out Atalanta there, and then in Roma. Good for Roma. We talk about this all the time. That what do they look like when all the pieces are there? And Paulo Dybala is something special. He is a special player. And you saw in this game how he just kind of pulled the strings in this game. You see what they are like with Lukaku in the lineup. He is going to be an instrumental piece for them. And, we already see flashes of Tammy Abraham, getting fit. Who knows if he comes back this season. But what we saw is Sanchez and Dybala and Lukaku. That's a nice combination there, right? And I think this Roma team, if they can stay healthy, they're obviously going to be a team that's going to be difficult to play against this year. And last shout is, I was going to echo your comments on Torino. I think this is a really good Torino team. A lot of good players on this team. When Radonjic is on, I mean, obviously, Duvan Zapata is going to be the guy who's the marquee guy on the team, but Radonjic is excellent. When he's on, that team is going to win. When he scores, it seems like they're undefeated in those situations. So Torino is another team to keep it out this year. They're going to be contending for the top 10 position this year.
So SofaScore has, and I don't always believe SofaScore's ratings, but it's very interesting to take a look at this.
Right.
Their top 10 players in terms of average rating per game. 5 of them are Inter players. The top 4 are actually Inter players, so that's appropriate.
Yep.
Lautaro, Di Marco, Bastoni, Mkhitaryan, and then Çalhanoğlu is 9th. You got Leao in there, and Giroud are in there. Because as ugly as that was on Saturday, the first 3 games, they were both very influential. You've got Cristante in there, and I think a lot of that is skewed on his game this past weekend against Empoli. And then you've got Montipo at 10th because he's the goalkeeper for Verona, and he's playing for a team that's allowing him to get shelled and forcing him to make saves.
Yeah.
Andrea Copani is 6th on this list. We were talking about him earlier.
Yeah.
And he deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. I mean, if we had to do a squad that if you know through 4 games, you got to jam him into it.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm buying in on this. I think he's a talent, and I think he is when you're talking about that attacking midfielder that Italy need, that's going to be able to unlock things and things like that. And Matteo was on with us last week, and we talked about Verratti's still the only midfielder that can do that. I'd love to see Colpani get into the Italy setup and see if he can take his crack at this. So
yeah, we've seen them trying to jam Locatelli in that position, and it hasn't worked. And you can't force someone to be someone that they're not. And I think Colpani is certainly that type of player who can get in there, make it difficult for the opposition, can contribute to the offensive side. And he's looked fantastic. He's fun to watch so far, and he's got a good understanding of the game and knows where to be in the right places at the right time, right? And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what this guy can continue to build and hopefully become a member of the Azzurri and be a key contributor for them down the road. So, yeah, totally excited. I'm glad it's a fair shot to be top 6.
Yep. Yes, for sure. So I think that's as much as I can disagree with how SofaScore rates their players sometimes, their top 10, I don't have too much of a hard time disagreeing with, and where they have everybody placed. I mean, if you look at it through 4 games, it's Lautaro 1, Di Marco 2, Bastoni 3, Mkhitaryan 4, Giroud 5, Colpani 6, Cristante 7, Leao 8, Çalhanoğlu 9, Montipo 10. And then your next 5 after that, Luis Alberto 11, Di Lorenzo 12, Turati 13, Osimhen 14, and Ederson from Atalanta 15. So
Turati had a fantastic save this weekend too.
He did.
But since you're talking about rankings, we didn't do this last week, but power rankings. What does your power rankings look like this week?
Oh boy. Okay. So my power rankings
Inter number 1, obviously.
Inter number 1, Juventus number 2. So I mean, and they're 1-2 in the table, but they're going to be 1-2 in the power rankings as well.
Yeah.
Lecce 3.
I'm with you.
Right now, I mean, this is going to normalize at some point.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Frosinone and Lecce are both in the top 7, so that's going to level out.
I would say Milan 4. I would say Torino 5.
Okay.
I think they've overcome that 4-1 defeat, and that would be my top 5 right now if I'm going off of power rankings. So I'll go Inter, Juve, Lecce, Milan, Torino.
I'm going to go Inter, Juve, Lecce, Milan, Napoli, with Torino just outside the top 5.
Okay, even with Napoli drawing 2-2 with Genoa.
Yeah, I still think they're the real deal. I just yeah.
Is this more of an indictment on Torino losing 4-1 to Milan, or?
Yeah, a little bit there. I mean, I don't think Napoli. They lost to a very good Lazio setup there, and I thought the draws were teams that played really well in those games versus, Torino did have that little stinker against Milan, so that's a little difference there.
Okay, gotcha. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, and I think that Empoli have yet to score this season.
Yeah.
4 games in, and you would think with some of the players that they have in the midfield and some of that stuff, and Zanetti's already been fired. So he wins the sack race. Well, wins or loses the sack race, however you want to look at it. When we all thought it was going to be EDF, which was
manager of the year at this point.
Gosh, it's incredible what's going on over there at Frosinone and the job that he's doing, beating Atalanta. Yeah, okay, they took it in the teeth against, and Frosinone, they're 6th in the table right now.
I know. Unreal.
So it's again, this will all normalize. We need a few more games. We need a little more sample, but I mean, some of these stories right now that are popping out early on in the season are interesting to tell right now. So.
Well, talk about samples. We had a lot of samples of goals this weekend. Lots of goals. I'll give you my top 5. My honorable mentions, I'm going to go Luis Alberto. I thought his nice goal in consolation to their loss against Juventus. Politano, his goal was very nice. And Turati had a game-saving stop in his game. But my top 5 is actually a twist at the end, and I'll get to it. Number 5 for me, Mkhitaryan's first goal, the team goal by Inter. Wonderfully done on the counter there. Number 5, I'm going to Federico Chiesa. Wonderful strike for the second goal for Juventus in that game. Well done there. Number 4, going to his teammate, or number 3, Vlahovic, his first team goal. First goal of the game for him, I should say. The team goal is wonderfully done by Juventus. Nicely first touch by Vlahovic to put it away. Number 2, I'm going with Thuram, his team counter goal where he scored a wonderful goal top corner. And it was only outdone for me by Vlahovic's second goal. I thought that was a marvelous team goal, team play, but also a wonderful goal. I mean, Vlahovic, what he did by himself was just fantastic there. So that's number 1 with an asterisk because my number 1 play of the week is Provedel's header today against Atleti to tie that game at the death. It was just wonderfully done there. So when a goalie scores, it's usually going to be number 1 for me. So that's the real.
How do you have Thuram's goal too?
I like Vlahovic's goal. I like Vlahovic's goal. He brought that ball down from McKennie wonderfully. I just liked it a lot. I don't know.
Okay.
And screw Inter. That's my screw Inter.
I have Thuram as the goal of the week, and I have Vlahovic's second goal second, so I flip-flop that.
Yeah.
Colpani's third for me, the combination between him and Colombo. Brilliant goal. I've got the Mazzatelli volley at the top of the box for Frosinone at 4, and Vlahovic's first goal is 5th for me.
Yep.
So,
lots of good goals.
So that's the direction I'm going on my top 5.
Yep.
So we've power ranked our top 5 in Serie A based on how they're playing right now, based on results they're accumulating, of course. And then we've also gone through our goals of the week. So let's move on to Europe, and we talked about Milan, Newcastle, we talked about Lazio, Atletico Madrid. Wednesday, 2 Champions League games in the offing. It's Braga hosting Napoli, and it's Real Sociedad versus in the press conference, Artur Jorge was asked about how are you going to deal with the speed of Victor Osimhen with 39-year-old Jose Font playing back there, and George answered by saying, "I'm just curious as how Napoli's defense is going to deal with the speed of Abel Ruiz, Alvaro Giallo, and Bruma." And you know what? He's right. Because this Napoli defense has not figured it out without Kim. And they have been exposed first by Lazio, then by Genoa here. And Genoa exposed them on set pieces. You can go back to beating Napoli on set pieces now that Kim's out of there.
Yeah.
That's something that Spalletti did a good job of shoring up. It's all of a sudden chaos again, in that regard. Now, you're not going to look at Bruma, Abel Ruiz, and Giallo to beat you. They're going to take people on and beat you with pace. That's when you're looking for. They better have an understanding of where Niakate is on corners, because he's going to be the most dangerous threat to get his head to a ball. Ricardo Horta's a good playmaker. I mean, this is a Braga team that has, it's historically been an attacking side. They don't know how to defend. They don't know how to just pack it in and defend. They're going to come out and play Napoli, I see, which can play into Napoli's hands, especially if you leave Faratelia and Osimhen high. I see goals in this game. I actually do. I think that this is going to be an exciting game. Let's see what the bookies have at what the markets have the over 2.5 at. They have it at -125. They also favor both teams to score just slightly. I think you can bet the over 3.5 on this at +220 if you can get it. That's what it's showing on SofaScore. Because I think and maybe even over 4.5 if you wanted, but I think a 3-2 win for Napoli or a 3-1 win makes sense here.
Yeah, I think of the 2 games that the Italian teams are playing this week or tomorrow, I should say this game, Braga and Napoli, is going to be a more difficult game for the Italian team. I have to agree with the manager for Braga. I think obviously the pace is going to be something that's going to worry Napoli. Napoli, to your point, has struggled so far this year. I mean, if Genoa can look dangerous against them, what is Braga going to do to them, right? And so how they counteract that, obviously the midfield is going to have to play an important role for Napoli. I'm with you. I mean, I see goals in this game. I'm also going to bet over the 3.5 goal mark there. I think a 2-2 result will be actually a good scoreline for Napoli. Considering it's early in the season and they haven't found yet who they are, at least defensively. Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen are going to do their thing, but they have to figure it out defensively, I think. And they got some guys who have some pace back there. what can the wing backs do? In the middle there should be fine, but getting beat on the wing and then get that cross in the middle to a streaker pass between the center backs is going to be what's going to be the undoing for Napoli, and even the set pieces, to what you were saying. So I see goals in this game. I have to be proven wrong about their defense, and so I'm going to tell 2-2 in this game, and it's going to be a good draw for Napoli, but 2-2. I see goals in this game for sure.
Sure. Then Real Sociedad Inter. Looks like Andre Silva, who is now at Sociedad, this is like his 12th team that he's joined.
Yeah.
But they've got players like Oyarzabal, Kubo, Bryce Mendes, Mikel Merino can come through the midfield and score. He did it for Spain at the international break, but he's also done it multiple times for El Sociedad. So they have some pieces that can get to you and give you some trouble. And then Berenechea, who plays on the left-hand side, who's been scoring some goals for Sociedad. He actually has 3 goals in his last 4 games in league, so they look to him too to help produce. I anticipate this game kind of, though, being a little bit more intense, more slow. The goals aren't there. The money is suggesting that as well. They're kind of split on whether or not both teams score. They also have the over 2.5 at plus 110. So, and I kind of agree with that. But I think Inter are going to nick this. I don't think they're going to be hungover from the derby. It's Simone Inzaghi in a cup, and we've seen what he's done. I fully expect Inter to win this game, and I'm going to back them to win it 1-0. I think they're going to find an odd one that is going to, and they're going to be perfectly happy with that, and they're going to get on with their day.
Yeah, I'm along those lines. Inter have certainly come out very clinical to start the season, looking very dangerous, at least on the peninsula front. But the Sociedad team they're good. They're so good. I think maybe Braga is a little bit better than they are in terms of comparing those two teams. But they still have some pieces on their team, and you can't even though this is Andre Silva's 12th team, he's still a good player, right? He scored 28 goals last year or something ridiculous in the Bundesliga. So he's a decent player. I think it's going to be tighter than maybe Interisi want, but I feel they're going to win comfortably, and comfortably meaning I don't think they're going to feel like they're being challenged defensively. I feel another clean sheet coming for Jan Sommer, and I think it's going to be a 2-0 in this game. Inter win, like I said, win on the road, take it back, and move on from there. They're not going to be hungover from this game because, like you said, they have Simone Inzaghi, who is a cup merchant. He gets up for these games, gets the teams prepared for these games, and so if it was the opposite, maybe you would have that. But no, not in a cup game. Inter's going to be prepared, and so they're going to win. It's not going to be pretty, but they're going to get it done.
Yeah, I think this is a borderline rock fight. Not like the kind of rock fight Roma will get into with Mourinho. Yeah. But I think that having said that, I think Inter find the resources to just and they're not going to be bothered by just going there and winning by 1-0. That's not going to bother them any. So I'll go with that. Let's get on to the Europa. We're going to group the Europa and Conference League matches together. In the Europa League, we've got that's not what I clicked on.
Oh, I'll go ahead. In Europe, you got
go ahead. We got Sheriff hosting Roma. Sorry.
Yeah, Sheriff hosting Roma.
Atalanta hosting Rakov. Beautiful. And Genk hosting. You go ahead. Genk hosting Fiorentina.
Yeah. So looking at Sheriff hosting Roma, I think Roma on the road, I think going to be buoyed by those 7 goals. Should win in that game. It's Sheriff aren't quite as daunting as they had been in the previous years, and they're impressive win against Real Madrid a couple years ago. But I think Roma should win this game fairly comfortably. Atalanta Rakkau, I think, should be a walk in the park for Atalanta, and by walk in the park I mean a two goal victory. There maybe 2-0, 3-1 in that game, and then looking at the Europa League score or Conference League score, Genk Fiorentina is going to be the game to watch of these 3 because I think Genk is a decent team and they're at home, and so we'll see what Fiorentina is made of. Obviously, last year, fantastic run by Fiorentina end of the season on all 3 fronts. but this is a new year. They have started a little bit rocky and to start the season. Obviously, a big win against Atalanta, but how do they bounce back? Do they have a letdown performance against Genk after beating Atalanta in a thrilling way? I don't know. I see a score draw in this game against Genk. I don't think they're quite back into form where they were last year in Europe. And so, yeah, I want to see something. I'll probably see something like a 2-2 scoreline. I don't trust Fiorentina's defense just yet. And I think Genk could probably get a couple on them. So the 2-2.
Rakov, Chestakova have some pieces that we should maybe concern ourselves with a little bit. And it depends on how serious they are going to be about these things. But Fran Tudor is kind of the playmaker on that team. They gave, I believe it was Copenhagen, a scare in Champions League qualifying before eventually bowing out to them. They had a chance to. I think they even had a chance to send the two legs into extra time, but fell a little bit short. So they've been in certain situations. Having said that, though, I think Atalanta, to your point, I think they win comfortably, especially if they're motivated for it. I look at the Sheriff Roma game. Roma's a decent favorite in this game. I could see Mourinho doing a little bit of rotation here, knowing that there's got to be a priority to get back up the table in Serie A. So I see them. I don't see them blowing away Sheriff here. I see maybe a 2-1 win. I don't hate the idea of Sheriff sneaking one in because I think there still is a vulnerability to Sheriff to Roma defensively that could get exposed. The money doesn't, as of now, the money's not suggesting that Sheriff's going to score, but I think you got to prepare for something like that. Genk Fiorentina has the makings of a pretty entertaining game. Genk has produced some really good players through the years, and have some in their disposal here. And Fiorentina just better be careful. I can see a score draw here, Richard.
Yep, agreed.
Quite frankly, and I'm going to say 2-2.
Yep.
It's not going to be the ideal start for Fiorentina, but it's going to be a point, and it's going to get them going. So, so I think that, we'll come out of this with the Serie A teams going through the week without losing a game. So, and Armenian and Teresa, welcome, by the way. Good to have you with us.
Absolutely.
But I think that it'll be a good week of games, good showing from the 7 teams competing across these European competitions to get it started.
I agree 100%. And I guess there's only one thing left to do, huh?
Get to the world's most popular hashtag game?
Indeed.
Why not?
Who won? Calcio Twitter. And starting things off, Kier Palulu, hashtag Pioli out, says Tonali when his vitamin D levels tank after months in Newcastle.
What is that, Voldemort, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Beto Acevedo has nominated at Pierre Auxilio for Who Won Calcio Twitter. I'll translate. Milan started 2023 losing 3-0, 1-0, 2-0, and 1-0 against Inter. Then he decided to invest 120 million euros and finally managed to score a goal against Inter, although they still lost 5-1. Zing.
Zing. All right. Moving on. Gillis 15. Milan going into the derby with all those shiny new pieces.
He really? Wow.
Balls on him.
Let's see.
On them.
Not necessarily Calcio, but I guess we can maybe make it Calcio because Roberto De Zerbi manages Brighton.
That's right.
Troll Football, Brighton and Man United. It is the swan there, or the seagull. I think it's a seagull. Yeah. Is what they are at Brighton. Shitting on the Man United badge.
Oh, man. Moving on. Troll Football again. It's EA released FC24's difficulty ratings. The new low ratings are Chelsea at the bottom, then Man United, then semi-pro, then professional, world-class, and legendaries. So, yeah.
When you play, what level do you play? I'm up to world class.
I usually start at Chelsea and work my way up from Man United up. But yeah, usually I go up to like legendary world class. I used to. I haven't played in years, but that's what
all right, Matteo Benetti, who was our guest last week, and again, we can't thank Matteo enough for joining us. So at Tariq Panya said, a lot of talk about Newcastle facing a tough ask in Champions League opener away in Milan. I would argue the financial power of the Premier League is such now that Brentford at the weekend tougher. Be great for football world if it was different. Matteo saying Milan can reach all the Champions League semifinals they want, but until they prove they can do it against Thomas Frank in a wet and windy night in Brentford, it's all for nothing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Moving on, Saturnion, it's Tonali in midfield, seeing Ruben Loftus-Cheek taking his spot at Milan.
Oh, dear.
Oh, God. Jeez Louise. He just killed the guy. He's laughing at him. Is that it? That's it. That's all.
Is this guy okay?
I don't know if he's okay. I think he's dead. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't want to watch the whole thing.
Oh, goodness. I don't know if we have a winner here. I mean, these are, we got to reach out to Calcio Twitter and say, step up your game. I'm going to go with Kier Palulu.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
short week, but yeah.
All right.
Spot impersonation of Tonali here. So,
hey, Calcio Twitter, step your game up.
That's right.
This was probably one of the weakest batches of entries.
For sure.
So,
for sure.
I will go ahead and post that while you talk to the people.
People, how are we doing? Obviously the big games this weekend and yesterday, but tomorrow we got some big Champions League games that should be entertaining to say the least. We'll see what Napoli and Inter can do, but fully expect both those teams to show up as we said. Make sure if you haven't done so yet and you're on YouTube, follow us, subscribe, like, and leave comments on the videos. We much appreciated. Don't forget to hashtag the Who Won Calcio Twitter and send us your hot Calcio takes so we can have a good laugh at the end of our podcast every week. It's
but keep it fun and keep it clean and don't be a dick. That's all we ask.
Yes, exactly.
Don't be offensive. Just kind of peeking ahead to next week's fixtures. Nothing here that really jumps off the page. We're gonna get a good feel for Lecce's title credentials here. Coming up in midweek on September 26th when they travel to play Juventus. But as far as the weekend's concerned, the Bologna-Napoli game is going to be pretty intriguing on that Sunday. For starters, Fiorentina traveling to Udinese 3 days after having played it. That's not a good draw for them. No. 3 days after playing Conference League. And can Milan validate things? Can they stack a good performance against Newcastle with a win over Verona? Those would be the games that probably have my curiosity.
And I would say watch Lazio Monza. Do not underestimate Monza. Monza can play ball, so
they can.
Lazio, pay attention if you're watching.
Most definitely. Well, with that, we're going to put a bow on this edition of Serie A Sit Down, where we have our own channel on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. If you can't catch us on the YouTube channel here, but you have access to podcasts, those are two channels you can find us. Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, we're there too. Anywhere where there's podcasts, there's Serie A Sit Down, so check it out. You can find me at FTC_21. You can find Richard at R_KHARMAN in the Twitter or X space or machine or whatever you want to call it. Who knows? We're also on Instagram and Twitter at Serie A Sit Down, all one word. You can also follow us on Facebook as well. So we're in the social media spaces, questions, comments, topics for future podcasts that you want us to cover. We're happy to cover it for you. So that is it.
That is it,
Richard.
It is.
Chat, you guys were excellent.
Yes, guys, you guys are awesome.
Reno, there's 34 games left. Let's bump the brakes, big guy. So we got a long way to go. We got almost 8 months left in this. It's still going to be a hell of a ride. So, but we're learning some things about these teams. We're going to learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
Podcasts with the IFTV guys would be nice.
Is it too early to crown Inter champions? I think it is.
Right? I love how you just passed
34
on
games
that.
left. 34 games left. So yeah.
I love how you just passed on that comment from Armenian Interista.
He's a good guy. Welcome, Armenia football.
Yeah, welcome. Podcast with the IFTV guys would be nice.
Right on.
Maybe.
I concur. Good. Let's
Yep.
get the Calcio going, boys. Calcio around the globe. Hey, shout out to all the Calcio heads who do podcasts throughout North America and in the English-speaking world. Obviously this is an Italian game, but we all try to promote the game as best we can. These guys, the Napoli rant guys, the Calcio guys up north. I mean, so many good podcasts around. Calcio Reno, I see you as well with the Juventus take. Our friends, all Juve cast up north. There's so many people, so many podcasts doing Calcio. Even Genoa and I think even Lecce's got one springing up too. So yeah, it's so much. You got to support all these guys. Well, all we're trying to do is support Calcio, and so anyway, we can grow the game. Not only just the Italian side, but all around the world. We're going to try to do our best to do right. So.
Indeed. So, we will be back at this time next Tuesday night.
That sounds good to me.
We'll have some midweek Serie A to have to cover next week, so that'll be interesting too. In addition to the weekend's matches and everything else going on, it's starting to come thick and fast. So, be ready and be back with us here next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, live on our YouTube channel. I want to thank you all for tuning in. For Richard, I'm Frank, and as always, make sure you tell your paisans about us. Ciao.
Sul fondo mette in mezzo, l'aggancia di Lorenzo e la